Welcome to the 20th season of the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our panel includes Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com. Between them, they've covered Penn State football for 70 years. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ Sports Director Alex Colley, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Solani provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State! By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the 20th season of the NitWits. We know you're excited for our 20th birthday, but you're probably a little more excited for the 2017 Penn State football season. We're going to be breaking it down over the next 30 minutes. And as usual, we're joined by the usual suspects, the Altoona Mirror's Neil Rudell, FightOnState.com's Mark Brennan. I'm your host, Alex Colley. And we're talking about a pretty good Penn State football team, so we need someone who's been on some pretty good Penn State football teams, former Penn State wide receiver Jonas Dasty. Guys, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Good to be here. We have humble beginnings. We go back to, we were in the Altoona Public Access channel, not to sound too nostalgic, but we had no graphics or video. It was just Mark, Mike Irwin, and me. We really have had a ball doing it for 20 years. Appreciate WTAJ, how it's evolved it into a real TV show, and looking forward to a great year.
And here we are in the shadow of Beaver Stadium. Look how far we've come.
Well, fans are also looking forward to this season. Penn State administration looking a little further into the future, giving James Franklin a contract extension. It's been going on for a while, 6 years, $5.7 million in that ballpark per year. How do you like the way it's stacked up, and what's this do for the team and program long term?
Yeah, all those years in Joe, I know you can speak to this, where Joe Paterno was working for $500,000 a year. What a bargain Penn State was getting. But in all seriousness, this is the type of money that you have to pay to have a competitive program anymore. I mean, and that's what it's all about. If you want to be competing with the best, you have to pay up there with the best. James Franklin now, I think he's what, 4th or 5th highest paid coach in the NCAA, but also the 3rd highest paid coach in the Big Ten East. So that tells you what Penn State's up against. This was only a matter of time. Once they had a great season last year, you knew they were going to lock him up. I think he wanted to make sure that they had the commitment to facilities and that sort of thing done. He got the assistants done last year. I think it's a good move by Penn State to get him locked in, because clearly the guy's done a great job so far.
Yeah, I definitely like it. I mean, I think it was smart on Penn State's part for recruiting aspect, number one. Two, well-deserved. I mean, you know, it's been a short time in a sense that he's been here, but what he's had to deal with, what he's been up against, not a lot of people could have came in and organized it the way he did. I don't think he really gets, when I say he doesn't get enough credit for that, a lot of people were critical early on when we didn't have things going well for us because of the sanctions. What he was able to do in what I would consider a very short time, well-deserved and very, very good for our future as far as recruiting and how they, and the proof is there. I mean, the classes they're bringing in.
You know, he was still under contract for 3 more years, and under typical circumstances, maybe you don't jump that quickly, but these weren't typical circumstances, and I think I just can't imagine that they would want to really let this go on too long and let the distractions and the questions, and maybe let him be courted somewhere else, because they don't want to go through, I wouldn't think, another big transition, and he's done a tremendous job.
And well, I also think now, Neil, you look at it, he's signed up through 2022 you know, after that, where else do you see him going? I mean, he does seem like the perfect fit here. And going back to what Joe said, you know, he's the first one to admit that it took a little bit for the players to buy in. Listen, they were going through however many head coaches, including interims, in a short period of time. Once the players bought in, as soon as you start winning, you knew the fans were going to buy in. And now I think everybody's buying in. So I think, listen, you're talking about a guy, I don't see him ever coaching in the NFL. That just does, he seems like he's not like Bill O'Brien. He seems like a college guy. And this, to me at least, seems like it's his perfect place. Where else would he go from here? So I think locking him up, I think that takes all of that off the table. And I assume, you know, I'm getting a feel with the recruiting that Joe was talking about, they're going to do real well the next few years. And you're going to see this guy here for a long time.
All right, well, Coach Franklin has yet to throw, run for, or catch a touchdown here at Penn State. If last year was any indication, Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley should get their fair share this season. What's the expectation for Penn State's 1-2 punch, and is it going to be enough to maybe bring some of that hardware home that their names are being associated with in the preseason?
I mean, I think Barkley is going to be a prime Heisman candidate. McSorley maybe just a cut below in terms of preseason expectation. That doesn't mean that at the end of the year he may be in the conversation as well. But Barkley is, right now, he's being considered the most exciting player in college football today. So every time he touches the ball, he's a threat to score. I'm just kind of curious how many more opportunities they may give him to sort of keep his name in that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this could go two different ways. It just depends. I mean, big-time college football, like obviously we're playing here, and the teams that we're playing, the caliber of defenses, if they want to take a certain part of the game away, they will. So that's why it's very important for us to have the offensive line we're going to have, and the receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks, because, you know, if they want to stack up and stop the run and we can't get it out on the perimeter, which, you know, is not going to happen because we've got a tremendous offensive coordinator that really can manipulate a defense. So that's really going to help them. Again, if they want to stack up and try and take that one part away, they will. So his numbers could be dictated by defenses as well.
I think you're going to see a lot like 1994, where you have an exciting, powerful offense, very well balanced. And when it comes to the Heisman Trophy, you're going to see two guys kind of take votes away from the other. You know, a lot of people in the East may vote for McSorley. They may vote for Barkley. I think that's going to hurt both of them. At the end of the day, neither one of those guys is going to care so long as the team plays well, and I think that's going to be the bigger key.
All right, well, we're going to take our first break here on the NitWits, but when we return, Penn State has strength, a lot of it all over the depth chart. We're going to take a look at some of the strongest positions when the NitWits returns.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name.
We now return to the NitWits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
And welcome back to the NitWits. Throughout and immediately after the sanctions, we've been talking about how Penn State's been challenged by a lack of depth. That is certainly not a problem anymore, especially on this season's team. What are some of the strengths on the field you're going to be watching?
Well, I think that on the offensive side of the ball, at most of the positions, you'd have to start with running back just because Barkley's there. But I think receiver with all the guys, and some guys that maybe really weren't counted on that much last year. I just think they have a ton of depth. Real curious with the offensive line. They finally seem to be restocked there.
Yeah, I think they have probably about 8 offensive linemen right now. Maybe some guys have been bumped up a little bit. They would like to get a little bit more depth than that, but that is the one area where I think you're going to see significant improvement. Over on defense, listen, they don't have a star player right now on the D-line, but Coach Chaos, Spencer, they are really, really deep. He's going to roll 8, 9, 10 guys to that defensive line. People are going to have fun. Altoona, you know, Kevin Givens, obviously, but they have a lot of players there that they're going to be able to keep them fresh. I mean, that's going to be a fun D-line to watch.
Well, sure, I believe, you know, with this setup, the offensive line has been, for how many years now, our point where we had nobody behind anybody. We were bringing defensive linemen over. So I got to believe that having a solidified offensive line, a ones and twos setup, is really going to help them out with game planning. But, you know, on the defensive side of the ball, probably linebackers. I mean, you know, you've got more guys with more experience now, and that's such a key part of the Big Ten play is stopping the run. And, you know, it looks like we have some linebackers now, a little depth there as well.
Special teams should be very good as well. And wow, have we come full circle with you? Some love for Altoona after 20 years.
There you go.
Welcome to the
Next
party.
I'll be talking up McCoo over Larry Johnson. So, hey, Mike.
You know, receiver, I'm curious when we get to breakout players here a little bit and who to Donald Driver has been referenced by James Franklin more than Irvin Charles has made catches. So I'm going with Charles this year. He broke open he got him back in the game against Minnesota. I think it's time. You know, I look for him to be
Are you taking over? Are you like now directing us into the breakout player segment?
Alex was guiding. I thought you had more to say. I'm so used to it by now. That was
right.
okay. But yeah, as far as the standout players
or breakout players, I mean, a guy that I think everybody has to look at is Koa Farmer. You know, he's a guy who got a lot of playing time last year. I think he's going to be the starting field linebacker. It's taken a while for him to transition over to defense. He was an offensive player in high school, and then he played safety here. But that guy, he's big, he's super athletic, and I think now that he has had a whole off season at linebacker, I think he's going to be a force there.
Yeah. For me, you know, you got a couple on each side of the ball, but the guy that I really like on that defense side of the ball is Marcus Allen. I mean, I think that's a guy that's a difference maker in a game. He's a big body, makes a lot of plays. So I expect to see him have a really big year. And then, you know, the obvious on the offensive side with Barkley, McSorley, but really Juwan Johnson, seeing, you know, he looked really good in the spring, and he just seems to be one of those NFL-type receivers. And big receiver, I'm expecting some big things out of the edge as well.
Polk, I'm curious what kind of role he's going to play. He was really built around 2 years ago. Last year, redshirting. You know, and special teams as well, because, I mean, he has the speed.
Well, speaking of special teams, I mean, I think regardless of who they have back there in the return game, and Polk is a guy who could be involved in the punts, I think you're going to see a drastic improvement there. That's one of the areas where obviously you have Gillikin and, you know, the place kicker, but with the return game, this is where I think you're going to start seeing that depth pay off. Maybe guys who aren't seeing a lot of playing times, a Miles Sanders, who are going to be able to come in there and return kicks. And not only that, guys who are blocking, guys who are tackling, guys who are doing all these things. These are, you know, a lot of walk-ons and stuff were handling those positions the last couple of years. Now that you have the depth, I think that's going to be a huge improvement for them.
I'm curious on the defensive side there, a guy like Buck Holtz and maybe some guys that we don't know of that are really going to maybe break out. I know they have high hopes for Sharif Miller.
Well, yeah, and I think Torrance Brown is a guy. He's a veteran player. You know, he's a member of Franklin's first class. He's a redshirt junior, but you haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of him. A kid from Alabama, was a basketball player, super athletic, is going to be tough off of that edge. Sharif Miller is another guy. And then you look at some of the young guys. I mean, how is a Shane Simmons going to come through? And a Yetur Gross-Matos. I mean, this guy's a true freshman. If he has an opportunity to play, you're talking about a guy who's 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds, super athletic. You know, he's a guy who can do some things on that D-line as well. And on the interior, I am telling you, they have really, really good defensive tackles. They don't have, again, they don't have a Zettel, they don't have a Johnson yet. Some guys could develop into that, but they have so much depth there, I think it's going to be key for them.
I know his name was thrown out. My guy is going to be Sharif Miller this year. You lose a guy like Evan Swan, Garrett Sickles, who were big impacts last year, but that rotation, they still have 7 guys who saw action last year coming back, and then all the guys they're talking about coming on right now. Spencer's talking 8, 9, 10 guy rotation potentially right now. So we've talked about individuals, the good coming up. Neil's favorite segment where we talk about the potential concerns for the 2017
Let's
season.
like it.
Exactly. This is where he's going to go a little longer. We'll be right back on the NitWits.
The NitWits are brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Salaney Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Salaney provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State. By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
I'm former Nittany Lion Bob White, and you're watching the NitWits.
Welcome back to the NitWits. Try as they might, it's not always going to be perfect for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Last year we saw slow starts, injuries, those hindered the 2016 production. What are the concerns heading into the 2017 football season?
Well, it's kind of counterintuitive to what I said earlier, but you know, as I look at the defense, and Joe, I agree with you that the depth at linebacker is better, and it was actually kind of a silver lining that some of the guys were able to play last year with other guys bumped up. But losing Brandon Bell, to me, he's going to be the most difficult guy to replace. Godwin, they have a bunch of receivers, and I just wonder, you know, you're solid there in the middle with Kabinda. You know exactly what you're going to get. I think Koa Farmer's going to be a real good player. You have Manny Bowen, you have Smith in there, you have Brown, you have a bunch of players, but none of them are really as proven as Kabinda. So to me, that depth at linebacker, it's there, but I'm anxious to see these guys in actual game situations where they have to play every snap.
Right, I think Brown's going to be the guy. I mean, I think he's going to be really good. Lean last year, but I think he's going to be good this year. But you know, a little bit about you know, some concerns. You know, this is a team now that's always been a dog. They've always been told no, no, and no, and you can't, and you can't, and you can't. So now they're in a totally different situation. Now all the spotlight changed from, you know, anything is great to everything is a concern, meaning, okay, we only beat this team by this amount of points. I mean, I've been in those situations with the teams we had come off, and the first question is, how did Temple hang in there with you? How did, you know, so they're going to be asked a lot of different questions this year after wins, you know, hopefully all of them. But at the same time, you know, that would be a concern, and James addressed that. You know, to me, James is one of those coaches that doesn't let any stone unturned. He's always taking care of all the details. So I'm sure they address it. I'm sure they deal with it. But the momentum part of it, to me, would be the area that I would be probably the most concerned about as far as how are we going to deal with being looked at on top.
Yeah, they can't sneak up on anybody anymore. Right. You know, you can make a case that maybe they did against Ohio State, actually a couple times, so that's on Ohio State. The secondary, I think it's, you know, really has to prove himself. I know Allen is a great run stopper, but now it'll help that they don't have to face the USC quarterback, you know, in the regular season. But I am concerned about the secondary. They got lit up for 30 points, I think 4 out of their last 6 games last year. So they're going to have to outscore people, I think.
Yeah, they have really good depth in the secondary, even with John Reed gone. To be able to bring in a guy like Christian Campbell, I think, is huge. That safety spot opposite Allen, you know, whether it's Apke, whether it's Nick Scott, you know, whoever plays there has not seen a ton of action, even though there's some veteran players. So that's the one spot I would look at in the secondary and maybe keep your eye on.
Nobody worried about kickoff duties with Julius not being there. You're all comfortable with whether it's Barbier, Gillikin, or Tyler Davis?
Yeah, I mean, I think Davis would be fine. If you've had a chance to see Davis in practice, the kid, it's weird when you say a kicker's gotten bigger, but he clearly is. He's gotten stronger, and I think he's, you know, my guess is he's going to be the guy, and I think he'll be just fine. Will he be as consistent into the end zone as Big Toe? Not sure about that, but I think they're going to be fine there. All right. I would say this much. Listen, behind those two guys, if either of their starting specialists gets hurt, and that's what we've come to at this point, then I think you might have some issues. I mean, especially with a guy like Gillikin. I'm not sure. You look at the drop-off behind him. I don't want to be critical of anybody, but Gillikin was a huge weapon for them last year, and if he gets banged up, you could have some issues.
Right.
All right. Well, big picture now, when it's all said and done after the regular season, where do you think they're going to stand? Are they heading back to Indy and beyond?
Well, I think, you know, and you can lump this into the concerns. I think the schedule's going to play tougher than it did last year. You know, you got to go to Columbus. Iowa and Michigan State both got pounded here. They have a lot of pride and veteran coaches in their program. I'm going to say 10-2. I see a loss at this point in Columbus and maybe somewhere else, possibly Northwestern, underrated program, usually better earlier in the year than later in the year. I say 10-2.
You're giving a 1 minute thing. That means go quickly.
Well, then
now,
go.
Joe and I, I'm going to go 10-2. I think Ohio State's going to be a tough game for them. Ohio State has an off week before that game. Urban Meyer obviously felt a sting here. And Neil, I agree with you. They're going to take everybody's best shot this year. And it's tough to go to places like Iowa and Northwestern. I think one of those teams may get them.
Well, you know what?
10-2 last year.
10-2 is off the board. I'll tell you what. You know, this year, you know, don't think that it's going to be easy by any means. Don't think there's going to be not going to be struggles, but the way I see this thing is it's set up for them. It's out there to take. I'm going to go ahead with they're going to run the table at 12-0.
I figured you were going to make that pick, Joey.
I see it. I mean, I think they're going to win. They're going to be prepared. It's not going to be easy, and they're going to be behind in a lot of games or a couple games or whatever, however you want to call it. But 12-0, and here we go.
Mike Irwin will be proud of you. And the chair, representing the chair. How about Alex, your pick?
I'm going to go 11-1. I thought I'd be in the same ballpark as you, but I'm thinking 11-1. They have that gauntlet stretch that you talked about, but I think it's 11-1, and I think they are back in Indy this year. But time will tell. And of course, Coach James Franklin right now, not worried about the big picture, just as he would say, Akron, Akron, Akron. We're going to be talking Akron when NitWits returns.
The NitWits are brought to you by Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday.
Welcome back to the NitWits. It's time to make our game day predictions. The Nittany Lions and the Akron Zips have met 5 times, all 5 times right here in Beaver Stadium. Nittany Lions have won all 5 games. Last meeting in 2014. Is this time any different?
Yeah, I've tried to mathematically do this over the years, and it's never really worked. So I'm just going to kind of wing it this year. I don't think you're going to see all of the offense in game 1. I think they may be holding things back for a game that's a little bit further in there. But I do think you're going to see them play really well. I'll go Penn State 48, Akron 13.
I can go next. I'm not the nitwit of the year, so. I think that's a good point. He'll be holding a few things back from Pitt, even though it's not really a real rivalry. I was going to go Penn State 41, Akron 13. Their 33-point line, I thought that was maybe a little bit higher than it might be, but 41-13.
But when they score 49 points again, or 40, whatever it was against USC, that's the part I have trouble wrapping my head around. Even if you're playing a team that you don't have your whole offense. So I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't mean that.
No problem. You guys are right around where I was thinking here. I'll go right in the middle there, and we'll just say, 45. Penn State 45. Akron will score something late. We'll give them 17. So 45-17. Again, I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on, kicking game field position.
You got me fighting for a half a ball.
You got to do it, too. That's my buddy.
See, I'm taking all the math out of it. I'm letting Neil destroy himself.
Already squeezed.
Everyone's pretty much in the same ballpark, I was thinking. I'm going to go 40-10. I do think Akron gets something late when Penn State's trying some newer guys in there towards the end of the game, but I think it's Nittany Lions 40-10. So eventually we're going to find out who's going to get up early in the Nitwit of the Year standings coming up next week. But of course, we're all anxiously awaiting kickoff here. We hope you are too. Well, we know you are too because you're watching. And we hope that you return next week. We want to welcome all the new markets who are joining our Nitwits family on a very exciting 20th season of the Nitwits and a very exciting 2017 football season for the Penn State Nittany Lions. For now, guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you back here next week.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By The Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Solani provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State! By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.